All right, on the phone line we have Milind Mudgal, a relief worker in Nepal. Milind, thanks so much for speaking to Headlines today. Can you give us an update? We believe the epicenter of the powerful earthquake was east of Kathmandu in Birkut. Has any damage been reported? What's the situation like there?
Well, I am in Thamel, which is a tourist center, and I was sitting out for lunch on the first floor and the whole building started shaking. It was quite violent, the shock, so people were screaming and shouting. We went downstairs. The whole, all the streets were crowded with people. A lot of panic, and the ground kept shaking for some time. I think the main shocks were about 10-15 seconds, and then it carried on for some time. Everybody shut down their shutters, and people are just running away. I don't know where they're going. I dragged my friend up, and we are back in the restaurant. We convinced the owner to open the shop, and we are eating lunch. I can't see any visible damage at all. And I've been here for the last 4 days driving around Kathmandu. And unless you go to Bhaktapur and parking, which where the 15 damage happened last time, you don't see much damage in the city. It's only when you go out into the outside, into Sindhupal Chowk, Gorkha, so that's where you see massive damage from the last earthquake. So the concrete seems to have stood up, and that's the situation here from Thamel, Kathmandu.
All right, Milind, stay on with us. We're also being joined by Utpal Mishra, a journalist from Nepal, who's with us on the phone line. Utpal, can you take us through the pictures that you were seeing around you? How's the local media reporting this story? We believe that the epicenter of the earthquake was Birkut, and the intensity was 7.1.
Yeah, that is correct. That is the report coming out. And the reports of further damage from this is again going to be very high because due to the last quake, those houses that were cracked are now believed that they might have sustained much more damage. And that is going to be very count. And the media persons and the rescue and other vigilance officers and others are now rushing to, especially to those sites that were that had those hanging buildings and partially collapsed or tilted buildings towards them, because now it is very much
Utpal Mishra, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're getting an update. Apparently the intensity of the earthquake was 7.4 on the Richter scale, which means only 0.5 less than that powerful earthquake that hit Nepal on the 25th of April and left behind a trail of death and destruction. The country is still reeling under the after effects of the damage that it witnessed after that powerful earthquake. We're now being told that the earthquake which hit Nepal just a few minutes ago, the epicenter which was in Nepal, was of 7.4 magnitude. The epicenter is Birkut. Utpal Mishra, a journalist from Nepal, and Milind Mudgal, a relief worker, they're both on the phone line with us, describing to us what they're seeing around you. Utpal, you telling us that relief workers, journalists and relief teams are now being rushed to Birkut. Can you describe to us the topography of the area?
Right now, I cannot describe you the progress of the area because it hasn't been much longer that the quake happened. And in fact, people are waiting here for the return aftershock of that huge magnitude earthquake. So after that, after people get recovered from that return aftershock of that magnitude, then probably everybody will start running here and there. That's the scenario right now.
All right, we've also gotten another update saying the epicenter of that earthquake was Kodari, east of Kathmandu. The intensity of the earthquake was 7.4. Massive tremors felt across North India as well. Milind Mudgal, a relief worker in Nepal, is with us on the phone line. Milind, you were telling us that you were sitting down for lunch when the entire building started shaking violently. Take us through the evacuation processes that you're seeing in that city. Are people now still out on the roads refusing to get back indoors? Because this is what we saw after the last time, people refusing to move indoors. In fact, the first night, thousands of people had spent standing on the roads, refusing to go either inside their houses or their office buildings.
There's only one word to describe this, which is mass panic. And now the streets are a ghost town. The shutters are down and everybody's left Thamel. I just see people in ones and twos roaming around like we would imagine on a holy weekend. After the celebrations, how the whole city becomes like a ghost town. That's what it is outside. I'm looking down onto the street as I speak, and I can just see one or two passerbys. My friend was trying to call his family and the phone lines are jammed. So everybody's trying to check on the welfare of their loved ones. It's a ghost town now. Everything, I don't know where people are going, but the entire, all the shops shutters are down, and it seems to be empty of people.
All right, and Milind, you've been involved in rescue and relief work in Nepal after that powerful earthquake hit the country on the 25th of April. What's the kind of devastation that you've seen there on the ground for the last 2 weeks?
Well, to be fair, I've only come here 5 days back, and no, I was not involved in any of the rescue work. I'm just doing relief work with the Hillary Foundation in a small capacity. I was able to go into Sindhupal Chowk. Sindhupal Chowk is north of Kathmandu and was the epicenter of the second earthquake, which has seen where 50% of the deaths of Kathmandu have happened. If you drive through Kathmandu after 10 days of the earthquake, and when you try and go into the hinterlands, you would not, if you didn't know there was an earthquake, you wouldn't notice there's anything amiss. I met a group of trekkers who were in the Everest region while the earthquake had happened, and they came back yesterday. And I was asking him, how was it in the Everest trail? And they said, hey, it's not as bad as everybody's making out to be. Because that's the sense that you get if you're in Kathmandu. But if you head up into the hills and you start going into the villages, everything is down. And these houses were made of small stone, and they're held together with mud, basically. And all those houses are down. Concrete buildings, RCC construction with brick, wherever it has been, has taken a less of a toll. So it's a little counterintuitive. One had always imagined that the local building materials and the local architecture was sort of earthquake resistant. But what we are seeing is completely the opposite. All the local houses are down. Luckily, it was around noon when that earthquake, the cities hit, and people were outside in the fields. It's only people who were inside who died. But there is extensive damage. 80-90% houses in some villages, 100% which are down.
All right. Milind Mudgar, please stay on with us. We're being told that Muralidharan, senior journalist from Nepal, is also with us on the phone line. Muralidharan, can you describe to us what's happening there in Nepal right now? We believe that the epicenter of this earthquake was Kodari. The intensity was about 7.4 on the Richter scale. Mr. Muralidharan, can you hear me? Right, we'll try and reconnect with Muralidharan. Let's go across to our deputy editor Shiv Arur, who's with us live from our newsroom. And Shiv, I believe, has a detailed map of the area in front of us, and he'll explain to us where exactly this earthquake happened and how powerful it was, and what are the kind of areas in the vicinity that are likely to be worse affected. Over to you, Shiv.
Simi, 22 kilometers from the China border. I've got a very detailed Google map here of the area that gives you a sense of where this was. This right here is Kathmandu, which, remember, the valley over here was very, very badly affected during the last time. And the place that's been affected by this particular quake is actually up here in a place called Kodari. Kodari right here is where the epicenter is, 19 kilometers below the surface. If I could just give you a sense of what the distance is between Kodari and Kathmandu, it's about 69, if you can see this straight line, 69.44 kilometers is the distance between Kathmandu and the place where the epicenter is. It's on the way, to the higher northern areas of Nepal, including Everest Base Camp, and just about 22 kilometers, Simi, from the actual, border with China. As you can see from this Google map, it gives you a real sense of the terrain over here. Kodari is a very, it's a high altitude area, a very hilly part of Nepal, mountainous part of Nepal, snowbound area. You can see markings here because this is a hill route marked in Chinese that cuts into China as well. Lots of frozen lakes here. Now, this particular map doesn't tell us whether this is a built up area or how populated it is, but Kodari is definitely a place on the map, which means there is a population there about 69.55 kilometers away from the capital city of Kathmandu. Quite a distance away from Liachung, where the first epicenter of the last quake was, in which thousands of people actually died. The important thing to note in this particular map, Simi, is that right from Kathmandu up until the place where the epicenter is understood to be, there are relief and rescue operations continuing even at this time. Many rebuilding operations, including by Indian personnel, are continuing in this entire area that we see over here. Several buildings, residences, office buildings in this entire area had been completely decimated in the earthquake. Now, this particular place where the epicenter is quite a fair distance away from Kathmandu at this time, but we're still getting information about what kind of damage may have been wrought in that particular area. Of course, usually the epicenter itself doesn't sustain as much damage as the areas surrounding it, but this map appears to suggest that there are many places, not very far from the epicenter where, the quake damage could possibly. We still don't have first-hand information on the damage, so we wouldn't like to conjecture at this point, but if there is damage, and let's hope there isn't, it would be particularly in this particular area, and also a shadow over what's happened.
लग रहा है कि दोबारा कुछ
नहीं यहाँ पर किसी को पैनिक क्रिएट करने की कोशिश नहीं करनी चाहिए, ऐसा कोई संकट नहीं है।
राजनाथ जी, पार्लियामेंटेरियंस ने आपको रिगार्डिंग तीसरा सीजन क्या बोला?
All right, that was Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh saying that the situation in India isn't as bad, and they're trying to carry out an assessment to figure out what regions in India have been affected. Of course, India has been spearheading rescue and relief efforts in Nepal after that powerful earthquake hit that Himalayan country on the 25th of April. Another major earthquake, a powerful earthquake hits Nepal.
जानकारी मिली है, अभी मैं जा रहा हूँ तुरंत इसी संबंध में मैं बात करने के लिए तुरंत। और जो भी इतना मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि जिस भी प्रकार की सहयोग की आवश्यकता होगी नेपाल के बराबर भारत उसके लिए तैयार है।
लोग पैनिक हैं दिल्ली में, खासतौर पर घरों से उतर आए हैं, घर पे नहीं जा रहे हैं। लोगों को ऐसा लग रहा है कि दोबारा कुछ
नहीं यहाँ पर किसी को पैनिक क्रिएट करने की कोशिश नहीं करनी चाहिए, ऐसा कोई संकट नहीं है।
राजनाथ जी, पार्लियामेंटेरियंस ने आपको रिगार्डिंग तीसरा सीजन क्या बोला?
That was Home Minister Rajnath Singh saying that he's going to consult authorities to figure out the extent of damage in Nepal and other Indian states. Remember, the states of West Bengal and Bihar also witnessed quite a few casualties the last time that there was a massive earthquake. The epicenter was Nepal. The magnitude of the earthquake last time was 7.9 on the Richter scale. Another powerful quake hits Nepal. The epicenter is Kodari, some 69 kilometers away from Kathmandu. The intensity of this powerful earthquake was 7.4 on the Richter scale. There were massive tremors felt across North India, from West Bengal and Bihar in the east to Rajasthan in the west. The pictures on your screens are from the national capital region where people started pouring out on the streets. Now, of course, as far as the epicenter goes, our deputy editor Shivarur has been explaining to us how the damage usually is not so much in the epicenter as is witnessed in surrounding areas. Now, the epicenter of this earthquake was Kodari, 22 kilometers away from the Chinese border. Last time as well, in fact, we'd gotten reports to suggest that there was massive damage. It was reported from China and Tibet. Now, we're being told that this is another powerful earthquake, which is again been reported from near the capital of Nepal. Well, that's an update that we're getting from the Indian Met Department. Of course, there are varying versions of whether the magnitude of the earthquake was 7.4 or 7.1. We'll try and wait for a clarification on that. Let's get a word from Muralidharan, senior journalist from Nepal, who's with us on the phone line. Muralidharan, thanks so much for speaking to Headlines today. What can you tell us about the situation in Nepal? Mr. Muralidharan, can you hear me? I will try and reconnect with Mr. Muralidharan, a senior journalist from Nepal, and try and get an update on the situation on the ground. The epicenter of this powerful earthquake that hit the Himalayan country once again was Kodari, about 69 kilometers away from capital Kathmandu. Let's get a word from our correspondent Manjeet Sehgal, who's with us on the phone line from Chandigarh. Manjeet, we saw people running out of high-rise buildings in the national capital region. We also got similar reports from West Bengal. What's the situation like in Chandigarh?
Well, people were seen running out of their offices, and when the minor tremors were felt, although there is no news about the damage caused by the tremors, but still people are in panic, and the tremors were felt in the high-rise buildings. But we have no information about the damage caused by the tremors as they were minor.
Absolutely, Manjeet. Thanks so much for that update, Manjeet. They're getting us an update from Chandigarh where similar scenes were reported, people rushing out of their buildings after they felt tremors. Now, these powerful tremors, the powerful earthquake, another powerful earthquake hitting Nepal. The intensity, we're being told, was between 7.1 and 7.4. The epicenter of this earthquake is Kodari. Milind Mudgal, Indian relief worker in Nepal, is with us on the phone line. Milind, you've been speaking to us about relief operations that have been underway, especially by Indian agencies. They've been assisting the Nepalese government in ensuring that proper relief is provided. The country was still trying to come to terms with the kind of damage that it witnessed from that quake that struck the country on the 25th of April. Another powerful earthquake now hitting Nepal once again. Describe to us the situation that you're seeing. The last time I spoke to you, you told me that people had started closing down their shops and running away.
Everything is shut. I'm on the street. I've been walking for about half kilometer since we spoke. And people are clustered in groups of, let's say, 10, 15 at all the crossroads. People are just on their phones. They're, I presume, getting in touch with their families all over. It's very, very tense. And people are just waiting, huddled in corners. Everything is shut. And I've been to this Kodari place. It's on the Araniko highway. It's the major route to get to Kailash Mansarovar. And Kodari is the Nepali outpost on this side of the border. Then there's a small bridge, which is called the Friendship Bridge. And then you enter the Chinese town of Zangmu, which is a much, much larger outfit on the other side. Kodari has about 100, 200 houses. It's a much smaller setup. If the epicenter is Kodari, then I would expect a lot of damage on the Chinese town of Zangmu, which is just across the bridge.
All right, and Milind Mudgal, what's the kind of terrain that we're talking about here? Milind, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's the kind of terrain that we're talking about here?
It's a mountainous region. It's about the tree line. I think Kodari is at the tree line, below the tree line, and then from there on the Friendship Bridge on the other side, the road rises steeply to Zangmu. It's narrow and it's already taken quite a beating. I believe the Araniko highway, 15 kilometers at bits, had been blocked up. We were trying to get some relief stuff in from China, and the Araniko highway was closed. I don't know in the interim 15 days whether they've been able to open it. But if there's already been a sustained damage, this would have certainly closed a very important highway with China.
All right, thanks so much for speaking to us and getting us an update on this situation in Nepal. That was Milind Mudgal, Indian relief worker, who's also describing to us the terrain. He's saying that Kodari is on the Kailash Mansarovar route. He's also said that he's been to Kodari. It has about 100 to 200 houses. And there are also fears that massive damage may have been reported across the border in China. Now, we're still trying to get visuals from Nepal and get an update on the ground situation there from from local news agencies. Meanwhile, there was panic across Indian cities as tremors were reported across North India, from Rajasthan in the west to West Bengal in the east. We have Kamaljeet Sandhu live with us from the national capital, also with us Indrajit Kundu. I want to come to you first, Kamal. We heard Home Minister Rajnath Singh saying that he's rushing to meet officers to figure out the extent of damage in Nepal, to get a ground check and also to figure out if Indian states have been affected once again.
Well, definitely so. Home Ministry being the nodal agency, and remember, the first extent of help to Nepal was given by India earlier by the NDRF. This is the second time we've seen a strong aftershock in Nepal as well as the Indian cities. So obviously, the control room will try and make an assessment, get in touch with all the states who've actually felt that particular aftershock. Even in the government buildings here, whether it's the Rail Bhavan or the other government buildings, people did rush out of their offices, mostly all private sectors or otherwise. This is a daytime, so most of the people did have a reaction time. They did come out. Yes, the aftershock did leave a sense of panic in people, but yes, after that aftershock has gone, people are trying to get back, but there is this sense of panic that perhaps the aftershocks could still come in. But as far as the Home Minister is concerned, at the Parliament, very little aftershock could be felt. But remember, the buildings there are really solid. We were all doing our media bites there. We didn't really feel. We can try and show you even a sense out here. Not much of a movement. This is an open area for that matter. A lot of people sitting out there, but most of the people who've been outside, who've been working, really didn't feel so much. But the government buildings are right next to it, and we did see a number of people really rushing out of the buildings. There was a sense of panic and perhaps a strong aftershock for that matter, and that is why now the Home Minister has gone to the North Block. He will be taking a meeting with the NDRF. The control room is constantly going to be in touch, especially on the states which are neighboring to Nepal, especially the states of Assam, West Bengal and the Northeast. These are the ones they're going to be getting in touch with, and also the neighboring states of Bihar. But these are the ones who really helped Nepal in the first place. The NDRF, you must remember, Simi, have come back. There was a great amount of help, but yes, there were also reports about how Nepalese were upset with the sort of Indian work. There was much more talk and little of help, but right now this is the time where action is required, and that is why an emergency meeting is going to go on, and perhaps a decision will be taken once they come to know as the sense of damage, if there is any, and perhaps this is an aftershock. And remember, the tectonic plates have shifted, so there is a sense that this is a high earthquake zone area. The buildings could have received damage, but at this point of time, law and order being a state subject, the assessment will really have to come in from the state governments first, and perhaps they can seek help from the center later on. At this point of time, what we know is NDRF is the nodal agency which really helps during any sort of disaster. So their preparedness has already been checked during the Nepal earthquake. Perhaps they'll have many more forces which will be on standby in a short while, but they'll still await for the instruction from the Home Ministry.
All right, so the government there are trying to assess the extent of damage. Another powerful earthquake hitting Nepal, 7.4 on the Richter scale. Remember, the last time there was a massive earthquake in Nepal, the death toll crossed almost 8,000. The country was still trying to come to terms with the extent of damage it witnessed the last time. Let's also get a word from Indrajit Kundu, who's with us live from Kolkata. Indrajit, the last report that you got us, you were telling us about how people at local hospitals in Kolkata were running out of their buildings. There were people who were gathering outside. Of course, the extent of damage in Kolkata in Bihar was also quite extreme the last time that an earthquake hit this area.
Well, that's right, Simi. There was, in fact, panic that was triggered amongst people. We were standing in this hospital, of course, the railway hospital, where the victims of this morning's rail train blast have been admitted. And there was panic among people, not just the hospital support staff, the nurses, but some of the patients were also brought outside. And remember, once again, this earthquake has struck in Nepal. And that's the reason why vast areas of North Bengal have also experienced this tremor. In fact, Calcutta and in other parts of South Bengal also, we could feel the tremors. Now, the extent of damage, if at all any, and whether there are any casualties will take time for such information to pour in. These are initial, moments right after the earthquake has just struck. Last time we saw there was one building that had collapsed in Siliguri. There were a few casualties in North Bengal. Many people who had slipped off from one of the buildings that had collapsed in Jalpaiguri district. Now, these reports will take some time to trickle in. However, the government government is cautious. It is taking a stock of the situation from all the northern districts. In fact, what we can also report to you is that immediately after this fresh tremor that was felt across Calcutta, the underground metro railway service was once again disrupted and it was stopped. So as the standard operating procedure,
Indrajit, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Hold that thought. We're getting pictures from the Tribhuvan International Airport in Nepal. Remember, the airport had been shut down the last time there was a powerful earthquake that hit the Himalayan country. There were several aftershocks that were also reported the last time. So precautions, I'm assuming, will be taken to ensure that flights don't take off in and out of Nepal. Last time what we saw was that traffic had been diverted to Delhi and Kolkata airports. Of course, Kolkata, the entire state of West Bengal and Bihar had also been affected. Let's get a word from... Alright, we try and get an update and play out those visuals from the ground. Meanwhile, here's a ground report that we're getting in from Headlines Today's Sanket Upadhyay about how people in Delhi are reacting to those tremors.
Just a short while back, tremors have been felt again in the national capital as the seismologists are trying to find out what really was the epicenter. You can see, obviously, a sense of horror has in fact set in, where a lot of people completely rushed out of the building. This is, of course, the India Today Media Plex, the Headlines Today office and studios, and as you can see, all people have in fact come out. The tremors were felt. They were very powerful, very strong. Let's try and get in a word from a few people who are in fact here. Did you experience the tremors?
Yeah, this is very dangerous thing, because at that time we were working all the people in the computer, and certainly the feeling that there is some shaking in the body. And then when I climb up in my head and I see there is that the signal of that running, that is too much around, tremendous shaking and that. Then immediately I was asking the police, this is something in the earthquake, come out of the building, and then everybody coming out of the building.
How long did it last?
That is around approximately 1 to 2 minutes.
Is this, was the magnitude exactly the way it was when the Nepal quake struck?
Yeah, that time is very different. You know, that time I was just standing, that is shaking. It just, we all thought that is where maybe in the hanging in my head. But I think that the same thing is happening that previous one.
आप उस समय कहाँ थे?
थर्ड फ्लोर पर और एकदम हम लोग कैफेटेरिया में कॉफ़ी पी रहे थे, एकदम अचानक उसमें जब धीरे धीरे पूरा एकदम झूलने के समान
तीव्रता बहुत ज़्यादा थी,
बहुत ज़्यादा तीव्रता थी। फिर हम लोग वहाँ पोल के पास खड़े हो गए। फिर थोड़ी देर बाद जब हल्का महसूस हुआ तो फिर हम नीचे आए।
So as you can see, a lot of people here are basically narrating what they actually went through. Let's quickly step out and see. Now obviously people are moving back in, but of course a large number of people had in fact gathered. They came out of their particular office complex, their building. Now as you can see, people are now slowly going back. But this road, just a couple of minutes back, in fact, if you see, that's another office where you can see a huge number of people. I'll just ask my video journalist to come in and show you. As you can see, even now, the sense within the people is that perhaps there could be a sort of an aftershock. And that is why it's the fear of that aftershock that you can see that there are some of the employees who refuse to go inside the building because they fear that there could in fact be an aftershock of perhaps a similar magnitude. So there is obviously, post the Nepal earthquake, there's a sense of fear and panic that has set in as far as people are concerned, because those tremors were felt not just here in the national capital region in Delhi, but other North Indian states as well, like Rajasthan, like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. Now it is being said that the epicenter is somewhere along the Himalayas. We'll of course try and get in more details as far as the IMD is concerned as to where that epicenter was, but then the fear, the sense of panic that actually sets in when the earth starts shaking is something that one can see at this moment. In New Delhi, Sanket Upadhyay for Headlines Today.